Have you ever wondered what really happens in the unseen world when we fast and pray? It sounds mystical, almost magical, but the truth is that these practices have an incredible power that many underestimate. As we disconnect from the physical world to connect with the spiritual, there is an intense battle going on all around us, a struggle between divine and evil forces. Are you prepared to find out the truth? What goes on beyond the veil of our everyday reality? If you want to know how to earn spiritual money and unlock blessings that go beyond the material, read on. This journey will reveal biblical secrets, inspiring stories, and show you how every prayer and fast can transform your life. Stay with me and find out how to access a power that many don't even imagine exists. In the spiritual world, fasting and prayer trigger invisible movements that go beyond human comprehension. When they abstain from food and seek God's presence as Jesus taught us, Christians are connecting more deeply with the divine kingdom. This practice not only refines the soul, but also opens doors to miracles and revelations contained in the Bible. Imagine, as you fast, each prayer as a ray of light breaking through the darkness, illuminating the way to divine grace. The battle between the Israelites and the Amalekites, as described in the Bible, offers a powerful glimpse into how the spirit world reacts to physical obedience. Moses, following God's command, kept his hands raised during the battle, an action that directly influenced the course of events. As their hands were uplifted, the Israelites prevailed. When he lowered them, the Amalekites gained ground. This story is not just a historical account, but an example of how physical obedience can impact spiritual victory. Physical acts such as raising hands in prayer and fasting are more than simple gestures. They are keys that unlock spiritual power. Hebrews 1:14 speaks of angels as ministering spirits sent to serve those who will inherit salvation, while 1 Timothy 2:8 exhorts men to pray by lifting up holy hands. These Bible verses remind us that our physical actions have an echo in the spiritual realm. Therefore, when you engage in acts of worship like those described in the Bible, you are literally moving the spirit world in your favor. In the ancient conflict between the Israelites and the Amalekites, we see a history of faith and obedience recorded in the Bible. When Moses led his people, God gave him a clear command: to keep his hands up during the battle. It was not a mere posture, but a symbol of total dependence on God. Each time Moses raised his hands, the Israelites gained the upper hand. When I lowered them, they lost ground. This physical act of raising one's hands became crucial to victory, demonstrating the connection between physical obedience and spiritual success. God's command for Moses to raise his hands was not just a symbolic gesture, it was a divine strategy that illustrated how physical obedience could influence spiritual and earthly events. When Moses grew tired, his brothers Aaron and Hur supported him, keeping their hands elevated until sunset. This story reminds us that in times of weakness, community and mutual support are essential to sustaining our faith and obedience. Thus, each act of support is a reflection of the spiritual unity that strengthens our daily battles. Moses' physical obedience during the battle against the Amalekites underscores a fundamental truth. Our acts of faith influence the spirit world. When we follow God's commandments with concrete actions, we make room for the divine to intervene in our lives. This story also serves as an invitation to reflect on how we can incorporate acts of obedience into our routine. Raising our hands in prayer, fasting, or simply acting in faith are ways to connect our physical reality with the spiritual power that surrounds us. Physical obedience has a profound impact on the spiritual realm, as exemplified in several passages in the Bible. When we act according to God's commandments, we are literally opening doors to the supernatural. Hebrews 1:14 mentions that angels are ministering spirits sent to serve those who will inherit salvation. This shows us that our physical actions, such as raising our hands in prayer or fasting, trigger responses in the spirit world. Therefore, obedience is not just an act of faith, but a powerful tool for making spiritual money. Biblical examples reinforce the importance of physical obedience. In 1 Timothy 2:8, Paul exhorts men to pray by lifting up holy hands. This simple act is an outward expression of devotion that resonates in the spirit world. Just as Moses kept his hands raised during battle, our physical actions of obedience attract divine intervention. Imagine the impact that an act of faith, such as raising your hands in prayer or fasting, can have on your life and your daily battles. It is not just about empty rituals, but about a living and dynamic connection with God. When we fast, we are putting ourselves in a position of humility and total dependence on the Lord. This act of self-denial not only purifies the body, but also opens our hearts to receive divine blessings and direction. Therefore, by integrating these practices into our everyday lives, we are ensuring that our physical actions reflect our faith, thereby activating God's favor and allowing divine intervention to manifest in our lives. Angels play a crucial role in spiritual warfare, responding directly to the actions of physical obedience of believers, as the Bible teaches. In the story of Moses and the Amalekites, angels intervened in response to Moses' physical posture, demonstrating that our actions have repercussions in the spiritual realm. Hebrews 1:14 reminds us that angels are ministering spirits sent to serve those who will inherit salvation. Thus, when we follow the divine commandments with acts of faith, we activate angelic power in our favor. The intervention of angels is a constant in Scripture, showing that physical obedience elicits supernatural responses. In Daniel 10:13, we see how the angel Gabriel was sent to help Daniel after his 3 weeks of fasting and prayer. This account highlights that Daniel's physical self-denial paved the way for a divine response. When we emulate these biblical examples and engage in fasting and prayer, we are inviting angels to intercede in our spiritual battles, reinforcing our connection with God. The link between our actions and angelic intervention is a powerful reminder that we are always accompanied in the spirit world. In times of difficulty, our physical obedience can be the key to triggering heavenly help. So when you engage in acts of faith like fasting and prayer, remember that you are not alone. Angels are all around you, ready to respond to your commitment to God. This knowledge should inspire you to persist in your spiritual practices, knowing that they have a real, tangible impact on the unseen world. In modernity, many have a tendency to internalize their faith, forgetting the importance of physical acts of worship. However, the Bible teaches us that faith without works is dead. James 2:26. Fasting and prayer are practices that reconnect us with God and take us away from the distractions of the world. By fasting, we are showing God our total dependence on and pursuit of His will. Jesus, in Matthew 6:16-18, taught about the importance of fasting, indicating that it is a valuable practice for drawing closer to the Father. Reflecting on the need for physical acts of worship in modern times is crucial. In a world where everything is just a click away, taking the time to raise your hands in prayer or fast can seem challenging. However, these practices are key to maintaining a constant spiritual connection. Imagine the impact of starting the day with a time of prayer, raising your hands and asking for God's guidance for all decisions. This not only strengthens faith, but also invites divine favor into every aspect of life. Practicing physical acts of worship such as fasting and raising one's hands in prayer is one way to experience one's faith in a tangible way. In the modern world, where faith often becomes an internal, abstract concept, these acts are a powerful reminder of our devotion to God. Following Daniel's example and committing to periods of fasting can transform our spiritual lives and attract divine intervention. Incorporating these practices into daily life is an essential step in experiencing God's power in all areas, from daily challenges to the quest to make money in a just and blessed way. The story of Daniel and his 21-day fast is a powerful lesson in the connection between physical self-denial and divine favor. During this period, Daniel abstained from tasty foods and intensely sought God's presence, as narrated in Daniel 10:2-3. His devotion did not go unnoticed. At the end of the 21 days, an angel appeared to him with a message of revelation, showing that from the first day of his fast, his words were heard. This story illustrates how fasting and prayer can attract divine attention and release heavenly interventions. Daniel shows us that fasting is more than a religious practice. It is an act of humility and spiritual search that can bring answers and significant changes. By fasting, Daniel opened a channel of communication with God, allowing the angel Gabriel to come to him with a crucial message. This act of physical self-denial exemplifies how our actions can move God's heart and bring His favor over our lives. For those seeking guidance, solution to problems, or a new direction, fasting can be the key to opening spiritual doors. Following Daniel's example and taking time to fast and pray can transform anyone's life. In the midst of the rush of everyday life, taking time to abstain from certain foods and focus on prayer may seem challenging, but the results are profound. Just as Daniel experienced divine favor and angelic intervention, Christians today can gain answers and blessings through these practices. By committing to fasting and prayer, you are showing God your seriousness and desire to be in tune with His will, which can result in both spiritual and temporal blessings. God's love is unconditional, offered to everyone regardless of their actions. This love is manifested in the life of Jesus, who died on the cross for our sins, as described in John 3:16. However, God's favor, while also available, can increase through obedience and seeking His will. Acts of faith such as fasting and prayer are ways to demonstrate our devotion and desire to be closer to God, thereby attracting His favor in special ways. While God's love is constant, God's favor can be seen as a response to our actions of obedience. In the Bible, we find examples of individuals who, as they diligently sought God's will, received extraordinary blessings. In 1 Samuel 2:30, God declares, "Those who honor me, I will honor." This shows that while God's love is unwavering, favor can be a reward for our dedication and effort in following His ways. Fasting, praying, and living a life of integrity are all ways to seek and receive that favor. Understanding the difference between God's love and favor is crucial to an enriching spiritual life. God's love sustains us daily, but it is through actively seeking His favor that we experience divine interventions in our lives. Like Daniel, who fasted and prayed for 21 days and received powerful revelations, we too can seek God's favor to meet our challenges and achieve our goals. Incorporating acts of faith and obedience into our routine, such as fasting and prayer, is a practical way to live according to God's will and experience His blessings more intensely. Spiritual warfare is a constant reality for all believers, an invisible struggle between angels and demons that takes place all around us. Ephesians 6:12 reminds us that our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers. In this spiritual warfare, our physical actions, such as fasting and prayer, play a crucial role. Not only do they strengthen our faith, but they also activate God's power in our lives, helping us to win the daily battles. Actively participating in the spiritual struggle requires commitment and understanding of the weapons we have at our disposal. Fasting, for example, is a powerful way to humble our flesh and exalt the spirit, allowing us to be more receptive to divine guidance. Prayer, especially when accompanied by physical acts such as raising hands, creates an environment conducive to divine intervention. Just as Daniel persisted in prayer for 21 days, we are called to be persistent and vigilant in our spiritual walk. By understanding that our physical actions have a direct impact on the spiritual realm, we are encouraged to integrate faith practices into our daily lives. From dedicated times of prayer, periodic fasting, to simple gestures of raising hands in worship, it all contributes to strengthening our position in spiritual warfare. These acts not only demonstrate our obedience and devotion to God, but also trigger the heavenly help needed to overcome the challenges we face. Persistence in fasting and prayer is an invitation to experience victory and divine favor steadily and really. Amid the difficulties of modern life, fasting and prayer are key practices for reconnecting us with God. By following Daniel's example and dedicating 21 days to these practices, we make room for a profound transformation. Starting a fast may seem challenging, but the spiritual impact is undeniable. Set aside specific times in your day to pray and meditate on the Word, asking for God's guidance in every decision. This discipline strengthens faith and draws divine favor in tangible ways. The commitment to fasting and prayer is an invitation to experience God's presence more intensely. As Jesus taught in Matthew 6:16-18, fasting should be done in secret, with the heart turned to God. During these 21 days, set clear and specific prayer goals, seeking answers to specific areas of your life. This time of self-denial and devotion brings not only spiritual growth, but also opens doors to miracles and revelation. By committing to fasting and prayer, you are taking an active step toward your spiritual transformation. It is not just a ritual, but a journey of faith that can change your life. Throughout these 21 days, keep a spiritual journal, recording your prayers and the answers you receive. Share this journey with friends or members of your church, encouraging them to also dedicate themselves to this practice. Seeking God's favor through physical obedience is a sure way to experience His intervention and blessings in a powerful and real way. Seeking physical obedience is essential to experiencing spiritual deliverance. When we engage in practices such as fasting and prayer, we are opening doors for divine intervention in our lives. The Bible teaches us, through stories like those of Moses, Daniel, and Jesus, that our physical actions have a profound impact on the spiritual world. By following these examples, we can experience God's power in a more intense and real way. It is important to share this message with others, encouraging them to also seek divine favor through physical obedience. Imagine the impact that a 21-day commitment of fasting and prayer can have not only on your life, but also on the lives of those around you. Invite friends, family, and members of your community to join you on this spiritual journey. Together, you can witness miracles, revelations, and God's powerful intervention. The practice of fasting and prayer is not just an ancient tradition, it is a powerful tool for reconnecting with God and experiencing His favor. By raising your hands in prayer, fasting, or simply following divine commands, you are positioning yourself to receive spiritual and temporal blessings. How about starting this journey today? Challenge yourself to experience this transformation and share this message with others. After all, we are all called to live a life of active faith and obedience, thereby attracting divine intervention and favor. In the biblical story of Elisha and the Syrian siege, we find a powerful demonstration of divine intervention in response to faith and obedience. When the Syrian army besieged the city of Dothan to capture Elisha, his servant was terrified. However, Elisha, with unwavering calm, prayed that God would open the servant's eyes, allowing him to see the chariots and horses of fire that protected them. 2 Kings 6:15-17. This episode shows us that even in the midst of great challenges, divine protection is always present and intensifies with our faith. The vision of Elisha's servant was not only a revelation, but a profound spiritual lesson. God demonstrated that divine protection is especially manifest when we face greater spiritual responsibilities. Just as Elisha fully trusted God, we are called to do the same, knowing that He sends His angelic forces to protect us. This account encourages us to live with courage and faith, regardless of the circumstances around us. Understanding divine protection as something that intensifies with our spiritual responsibility is crucial. When we face difficult situations, remembering Elisha's vision gives us hope and strength. God is always at our side, ready to intervene. Embedding this trust in our daily lives through prayer and constant faith helps us to face challenges with the certainty that we are not alone. Matthew 17:1-21 teaches us the importance of fasting and prayer in winning specific spiritual battles. When Jesus' disciples failed to cast a demon out of a boy, Jesus explained that this species only comes out with fasting and prayer. Matthew 17:21. This verse underlines the need for these spiritual practices to gain power and authority over profound spiritual challenges. Fasting and prayer help us disconnect from the distractions of the world and reconnect with God. Jesus exemplified this by spending 40 days in the wilderness fasting and praying before beginning His public ministry. Matthew 4:1-2. These practices purify us, strengthen us spiritually, and prepare us to face the spiritual battles that come our way. By fasting and praying, we are putting ourselves in a position of humility and total dependence on God. Practicing fasting and praying regularly is vital for a healthy spiritual life. These acts keep us in line with God's will and open doors to His blessings and interventions. Imagine setting aside one day of the week to fast and spend time in prayer, seeking guidance and strength. This discipline not only deepens our faith, but also empowers us to overcome spiritual obstacles that would otherwise be impossible to overcome. Recognizing moments of disconnection with God is crucial to maintaining a vibrant spiritual life. In the hustle and bustle of everyday life, it's easy to get distracted and drift away from the divine presence. Practices such as fasting and prayer are powerful tools for restoring this connection. A moment of pause during the day for silent prayer or a week dedicated to fasting can bring clarity and spiritual renewal, strengthening your walk with God. Daily practices of physical obedience help maintain a constant spiritual connection. Simple gestures such as raising our hands in worship, kneeling in prayer, or reading the Bible regularly are tangible ways to demonstrate our faith. These acts are not just symbolic, but channels through which God can work in our lives. Embodying these daily habits transforms our faith into a living, dynamic experience. Practical examples of physical actions of worship and obedience can be integrated into everyday life in a simple way. Take a moment in the morning to read a Bible verse and reflect on it. During the day, practice gratitude, thanking God for small and large blessings. In the evening, raise your hands and pray for protection and guidance. These physical acts, while small, create an environment of constant communion with God, keeping the flame of faith alive and allowing divine favor to manifest itself in powerful ways. Now that you've discovered the transformative power of fasting and prayer, are you ready to put that knowledge into practice? Think about how these acts of faith can revolutionize your spiritual and temporal life. Ever wondered what it would be like to experience divine favor in an intense and real way? Imagine the blessings and revelations that can come when you dedicate yourself to seeking God with all your soul and strength. Are you willing to take that step of faith and see change happen? Challenge yourself to begin a 21-day period of fasting and prayer, following Daniel's example. During this time, keep a spiritual journal, record your prayers and the answers you receive. Share this journey with friends and family, encouraging them to seek God's presence as well. And remember, every act of physical obedience can trigger divine intervention. If you want to continue learning and deepening your knowledge of how to live a life of faith and gain God's favor, subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications. Don't miss any updates and always be prepared to experience more of God's power in your life. Let's go on this spiritual journey together.